full year 2021. That bleak economic outlook reflected really in how shares fared this week. 4 or 5 trading days in the negative territory. You have Philippine stocks lower by 1.8% week on week. Now, looking at the day's leaders and laggards you have here, a number of stocks here ending the day in the green. It's a mixed picture, really, but it's Metro Pacific leading the pack here, up close 3.4%, now at 4 pesos and 1 centavos a piece. Likewise, you have its partner when it comes to water utility provider Maynila DMCI, also ending the day in the green here, up 6.6%. This, of course, as you have their concession deal with the government already finally rolling after MWC or Manila Water's concession agreement was already finalized. On the other hand, you also have here Ayala Corporation also in the green here, up by 1.3% to 745 pesos and 50 centavos a share. This as they are expecting their business units to return to pre-pandemic level by 2023. On the other hand, you have a number of stocks here also in the red, the worst performer being Bloomberry. As you can see here, that's down 5.6%. That's after it announced a share buyback program. The number of shares in that program increased, in fact, to 150 million shares. That is expected to allow Bloomberry to acquire enough listed Bloom shares that will cover the total number of shares granted to certain officers and employees under their stock incentive plan that will vest in the future. Looking at how the stock is performing again, that's now at 6 pesos and 30 centavos a share. Now, looking at one stock from the all shares here, that's property developer Filinvest. They are setting aside 16 billion pesos in capex this year. That's a jump from just 11.3 billion pesos in 2020. That boost is expected to sustain rebound seen in the fourth quarter, especially in the residential unit, and to expand as well in other property segments. That's going to include logistics, e-commerce warehouses, and co-living spaces. The developer also eyes entry into 4 provinces that's expected to widen their network to 26 provinces across the country. Filinvest is also looking at adding 239,000 square meters of gross leasable area through the construction of 11 office buildings within the next 2 years. Filinvest is down 0.9% to 1 peso and 10 centavos a share. 2020 saw a boom in business registrations, but that's bound to be eclipsed by what seems to be an unprecedented number of name registrations in the first quarter alone. To further understand why, joining us is Trade Undersecretary Irineo Vizmonte. Good afternoon, Usec Vizmonte. All right, sir, I think you are on mute.
Hi, sorry.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Jes, and good afternoon to the listeners of your program.
All right, sir. So first quarter alone, your name registration, please, is already nearing half of 2019 figures at over 430,000 registrations. 2019, as it is, already saw a marked increase as well. What's driving that, though, this time around in the first 3 months of 2021? It's just still the same narrative here.
Yeah. I think number one, more people are affected by or workers are affected by the pandemic or closure of some establishments. While we know that the economy has opened up a bit, but we know also that some establishments remain closed, or some of them has permanently closed, and this forces or compels workers to look for other sources or look for sources of income, and the way to do it is to establish a business. So I think that's the reason why we have more business registration last year and this year. On top of that, I think we have opportunities in the area of e-commerce. More people are either into logistics or production of goods that are made available through online, or even platforms providing offering these services or goods to the public.
Okay, now we'll get to that later about e-commerce registrations. But firsthand here on name registrations, uh, that's just a part of the process that not that's not necessarily translate to a business being set up here. Do you have data as to how many of these registrations would actually proceed to becoming actual businesses?
Actually, we don't have that exact numbers because we are not tracking whether those who register their business name eventually register the business in the office of the mayor. So, but we think that significant number of these are eventually end up with a business, legitimate business. And in fact, that's one of the assistance being offered by DTI is really to make them in the mainstream business, helping them getting all the licenses and permits.
Okay, earlier, Usec Vizmonte, you were mentioning about e-commerce registration. So far, at least for the first quarter, that's at around 9,000 registrations. But when you try to take a look at the overall picture, that's just roughly 2%. Even last year's registration for e-commerce businesses, that only accounted for over 8%. Why is that? I mean, the expectation is that, given that many are forced to do from home setups, the expectation is that there will be a more significant number of e-commerce registrations.
Maybe because some of those activities are not exactly falling under the e-commerce. For example, logistics. I may be into a service provider in transporting goods. So my business may not necessarily be in the e-commerce, but rather in the logistics sector. So it depends. Some establishments, for example, if I'm a retail establishment, I could be registered as a brick and mortar, but I'm also doing online business. So maybe that's the reason why of that not so significant number of establishments are in terms of percentage
Oh,
falling under e-commerce.
okay, so it's really just a matter of classification there. But
Yeah.
so far for 2021, what are your targets here? How many business name registrations are you expecting?
Uh, of course, we are expecting more as we see it for the first 4 months. We have already 445,000 business registration, which is actually equivalent to the annual registration way back in maybe 2017 or 4 years ago. So we expect that we are going to reach the 1 million number in terms of registration.
Now, despite that seeming interest, at least in setting up businesses here, you have still a number of businesses closing, really bearing the brunt of the pandemic here, according to Secretary Lopez himself. Do we have data on how many businesses closed for full year 2020? And do we already have at least preliminary data as well for the first quarter of 2021?
I gathered from Dole that there's a certain percentage of permanent closure of establishments. But what DTI has is a survey showing that before the ECQ, we have around 4% number of percentage of establishment closed, and when ECQ came in, around 15% of the establishments were closed. Right now, I think it's around 10%
You're
under
talking about
MECQ.
you're talking about this recent ECQ, the
Yeah,
reimposition of the
correct,
ECQ. So
correct, correct.
that's 10%,
Yeah, right now
15%.
on
Sorry.
MECQ.
Do
But
we can we translate that
this
to
is
actual numbers, Yusek Vismonte?
I don't have that number, but this is based on the survey conducted among around 15,000 MSMEs.
All right. Okay. Now, given that as well, what's the progress now when it comes to assistance for MSMEs? I do understand that you have a program from Bayanihan 2 that's allotting around 10 billion pesos to
Yeah.
assist MSMEs. What's the progress on that front?
Of course, we're not the take up is not that uh, big, considering the circumstances we're in, as not everyone is inclined to borrow money because of the situation. But we hope those are we can grant those already allowed under this present community quarantine.
Mhm.
So, of course, bulk of the amount is intended for establishments or MSMEs in tourism.
Mhm.
So, expectedly, I don't think tourism industry will borrow money at this time. So
Mhm.
maybe that's the reason why we have this slow take up in terms of loan.
Okay. Very quickly, Yusek Vismonte, of the 10 billion pesos, how much has already been released?
All the amount is actually with the Small Business Corporation and available for lending. It's a 0% interest rate.
All right. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Trade Under Secretary Irineo Vizmonte. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, and good afternoon to everyone.
Now, the Mines and Geosciences Bureau is now pushing for more mineral processing plants in the country following the lifting of the moratorium on new mining deals. One News correspondent Shaila Francisco joins us live for more details. Shaila, how does the Bureau plan to go about this?
Just the Mines and Geosciences Bureau is hoping the current Congress will pass a law requiring miners to set up processing plants in the country. They say this will help add revenues and value to the minerals extracted by mining firms. MGB Director Wilfredo Moncano says the high cost of electricity is a major deterrent to invest in mineral processing plants, as this accounts for 40% of the costs. Montano explains legislative support by way of incentives could entice investors. Currently, there are less than 10 mineral processing plants in the country. The agency admits 10,000 ton capacity of mineral processing plant can cost around 180 billion US dollars, and so they are also proposing that the same law will allow clustering among miners with same commodities to put up capital to construct one. MGB wants a law pattern to Indonesia's banning of raw mineral ore exports to make miners process minerals in the country. The agency also needs the support of the Congress to help review and amend the fiscal side of the existing mineral agreements, including imposing royalty fees outside mineral reservation areas. Currently, the Mining Industry Coordinating Council is reviewing the environmental aspect of the current agreements. Jess?
All right. Thank you very much for those updates, Shaila Francisco. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The Trade Department has been promoting the country's new tax regime to attract investment from Japanese manufacturers of auto wiring harnesses. The agency met virtually with 6 Japanese companies on Tuesday to discuss potential expansion projects and new operations for those that have not located in the Philippines yet. Recall that wiring harness makers qualify for incentives like income tax holidays under the recently signed CREATE law. Trade Undersecretary Rafaelita Aldaba said executives from 2 firms that have already committed to build wiring harness plants in the country attended the meeting. That includes Sumitomo, which already broke ground on a new factory in Pangasinan, and Yokowo Company, which committed to invest 230 million pesos in a Bataan facility. Trade Secretary Mon Lopez earlier emphasized the need to upgrade local harness operations, with the use of wiring harnesses expanding beyond the automotive industry to the telecommunications, aerospace, medical field, and other ICT sectors. The Philippines' raw sugar output for the crop year 2021 to 2022 is expected to be flat at 2.1 million metric tons. That's according to the U.S. Agriculture Department. In a report, USDA Foreign Agricultural Service said the flat output projection is due to low farm productivity and unfavorable climate. And while the industry is batting to boost yields, the foreign agency said better results are not expected for 2 to 3 years when funds and implementation strategies are in place. But the USDA said its projection could still be altered by proposals to liberalize the sugar industry. At the same time, the agency said liberalization would be challenging as the local sugar industry is still not yet equipped to face open competition. And those are the biggest stories this trading day after April 23, 2021. Catch Businessworld live again Monday next week at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.